In the quiet, tree-lined suburb of Oakwood Ridge, Illinois, life moved at a gentle pace in the summer of 1998. Families barbecued on weekends, kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on, and everyone knew their neighbors by name. At the center of this idyllic world lived 32-year-old Emily Harper, a beloved elementary school teacher, devoted wife, and mother to 4-year-old Sophie. Emily was the kind of person who remembered every student's birthday, baked cookies for the entire neighborhood, and left little notes of encouragement in her husband's lunchbox. Her husband, Ryan Harper, 34, was the town's golden boy, a successful insurance broker, volunteer fireman, and coach of the local Little League team. To the outside world, the Harpers were the perfect American family. On the evening of July 12, 1998, Emily kissed Sophie goodnight, tucked her into bed with her favorite stuffed rabbit, and told Ryan she was running to the corner store for milk. She never came home. At 11:47 p.m., Ryan called the police, his voice cracking with panic. Officers found Emily's car parked neatly in the driveway, keys still in the ignition, driver's door slightly ajar. Inside the house, Sophie was sound asleep, but Emily was gone. The crime scene was eerily clean. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, no blood. Her purse was missing, but nothing else appeared taken. Detective Laura Bennett, a 38-year-old investigator with a reputation for never giving up on a case, arrived within the hour. She stood in the Harper living room and whispered to her partner, "This doesn't feel random." Ryan was questioned for hours. He had an alibi. He was home with Sophie the entire evening and passed a polygraph. The town rallied around him, bringing casseroles and offering to watch Sophie while he searched for his wife. Days turned into weeks. Flyers with Emily's smiling face covered every telephone pole. Volunteers searched woods and rivers, but there was no body, no ransom note, no witnesses. The case went cold by Christmas 1998. Ryan raised Sophie alone, never remarried, and kept Emily's photo on the mantle. The community called him a hero, but Detective Bennett never stopped wondering what really happened that warm July night. Detective Laura Bennett threw everything she had at the case. Fingerprints, hair samples, tire tracks, nothing. Emily's phone records showed her last call was to Ryan at 9:12 p.m., saying she was on her way home. The corner store clerk remembered seeing her buy milk and chat about Sophie's upcoming birthday. After that, she vanished into thin air. Ryan was the obvious person of interest, but every lead cleared him. He passed multiple polygraphs. Neighbors confirmed he was home with Sophie. His financials were clean. The town rallied behind him so strongly that anyone who suggested he might be involved was quickly shut down. Detective Bennett felt the pressure. The chief told her to move on. "We have real crimes happening," he said. But Bennett couldn't let it go. She kept the file on her desk for years, adding notes whenever a new tip came in. By 2005, the case was officially cold. Emily's parents died without answers. Sophie grew up calling Ryan Dad and barely remembering her mother. Ryan became a pillar of the community, coach, deacon at church, fundraiser for missing persons charities. Detective Bennett retired in 2012, but she took the Harper file with her, promising Emily's memory she would never stop looking. For a quarter of a century, Oakwood Ridge tried to move on. Sophie Harper graduated high school, went to college, and became a social worker helping missing persons families. Ryan never remarried. He kept the house exactly as Emily left it, saying it helped him feel close to her. The town still held an annual candlelight vigil on July 12th. But behind closed doors, the silence was deafening. Sophie would sometimes find her father staring at old photos, tears in his eyes. Detective Bennett, now in her late 60s, would call every few years to check if anything new had surfaced. Nothing ever did. Until March 14th, 2023. A plain, white envelope arrived at the Oakwood Ridge Police Department, addressed simply to Detective Bennett, Harper Case. Inside was a single handwritten letter on yellow legal paper. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "I can't live with this anymore. Emily didn't deserve what happened. Ryan Harper killed her. I helped him hide the body. If you want the truth, look in the old well behind the Harper property. I'm sorry." No signature, no return address, but the details were too specific to ignore. The letter was immediately sent to the state crime lab. Forensic linguists confirmed it was written by someone under extreme stress. DNA on the envelope flap produced a partial profile. When run through the national database, it matched a man named Thomas Riley, Ryan's best friend and former business partner, who had moved to Florida in 2005 and died of cancer in 2019. Detective Bennett, pulled out of retirement, led the new team. They obtained a warrant and searched the old well behind the Harper house. At 28 feet down, they found what remained of Emily Harper, her wedding ring still on her finger. Ryan Harper was arrested that same afternoon at his home while Sophie was visiting. When shown the letter and the ring, he broke down completely. In a recorded interview that would later be played in court, Ryan confessed. He had been having an affair. Emily found out and threatened to leave with Sophie and take everything. In a rage, he strangled her in the garage, then called his best friend Thomas Riley to help dispose of the body in the old well. They staged the disappearance perfectly. For 25 years, Ryan lived with the guilt, playing the grieving husband while raising their daughter. The letter from Thomas, written on his deathbed, was the final act of conscience that reopened the case. The 2024 trial was one of the most emotional in Illinois history. Sophie Harper, now 30 years old, testified against the only father she had ever known. Ryan Harper pleaded guilty to second-degree murder to spare his daughter the full trial. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. In her victim impact statement, Sophie said, "You took my mother and you stole my childhood, but I choose forgiveness, not for you, from me." Detective Laura Bennett, now 68, sat in the front row and cried for the first time in her career. The Harper house was torn down and the land turned into a memorial garden for missing persons. Sophie established the Emily Harper Foundation, which funds cold case DNA testing across the Midwest. The letter that sat in a drawer for 4 years finally brought justice. A cold case that haunted an entire community was reopened and solved because one dying man chose to tell the truth. As the sun set over Oakwood Ridge on the day of sentencing, Sophie placed fresh flowers at her mother's memorial and whispered, "We finally found you, Mom." The letter that exposed a killer proved that no secret stays buried forever.